The story begins at sea in the year 1897. A vessel approaches the shore, and it is evident that something terrible has happened. Aboard, no one seems to have survived the journey. The captain is tied to the helm lifeless. The rats are already having a feast. But as they reach the beach, they are not the only ones disembarking. The tracks in the sand belong to a much larger animal. The marks by the boat appear to be paws, but gradually take on the unmistakable shape of human footprints. We see that the mysterious traveler has just arrived in London. Then we jump to the year 2000. Matthew Van Helsing is a wealthy Londoner and owner of the Carfax Museum, where he keeps an unusual collection of artifacts. Simon is his young apprentice, who does not always agree with his mentor. While the young man thinks of reselling items for profit, the magnate is more interested in protecting his relics. Analyzing a new piece, he observes that the artifact is suitable for launching metal arrows, perhaps even made of silver. The inscription says that everyone fears he who walks under the halo of eternal night. This makes Simon laugh, recalling the legends that accompany the Van Helsing family. Matthew's grandfather was a doctor who collected antiques, but ended up inspiring a character in the book Dracula and gained a reputation as a vampire hunter. Leaving the office, Simon encounters his boss's secretary, Selina. Resisting his romantic advances, she tells him that she does not date co-workers, although she admits that the rule is quite recent. She went out with Simon last month, but now she wants nothing to do with him. At the end of the shift, a guard goes to the restricted area of the museum. Pretending to answer a call, he subdues the security guards and allows entry for his accomplices. The fake guard is named Trick. He handles the technology aspect, hacking passwords and disabling the security system. The leader of the gang is Marcus. He coordinates the entire operation, managing to bypass even voice recognition and retinal scanning. When the safe is opened, its interior resembles a crypt. Entering with flashlights, the thieves seem a little surprised. The place is filled with old furniture, chandeliers and books, in addition to several crucifixes. Meanwhile, Selina is walking past the entrance to the restricted area. She sees the abandoned counter and the vault door wide open. After thinking for a moment, she decides to enter the crypt. Moving cautiously, she is startled when she accidentally touches a skull. She realizes that there are several others lined up against the wall, and the strangest thing is the dental arch, because they all have a pair of sharp fangs. She is startled again when Marcus suddenly appears. But then, we find out that they not only already know each other, but they are a couple. It was Selina who planned the heist, although she does not know the contents of the safe. By the level of security, she was expecting her friends to find very valuable works of art, or even diamonds. Irritated with his girlfriend, Marcus says that so far, they have only seen a bunch of junk. If the safe looks more like a macabre flea market. The millionaire's strangeness does not stop there. Upstairs, unaware of the robbery, Van Helsing is busy with a rather unusual medical procedure. With a syringe, he performs a kind of transfusion. From a leech to himself, his pupils change color, and he enters into a sort of trance. Downstairs, the thieves are becoming increasingly apprehensive about their surroundings. A guy named Shade hypothesizes about giving up the robbery and running away. Marcus and Selina do not want to hear anything about it. Arriving at the central chamber, Trick says that everything else has already been checked. If there is indeed treasure, it must be there. The passage has a huge crucifix in front of it, secured by chains and locks. They manage to remove it without difficulty, but when they open the door, the only thing they find is a coffin. Losing patience, the thieves start to curse Selina, until Marcus interrupts them. His theory is that this ghostly apparatus is there to scare off cowardly intruders. All this only makes the security even more impressive. Now Marcus is convinced that there is treasure inside the coffin. As his henchmen still doubt, He says he will only pay them if they cooperate. The incentive is enough, and they start to work. When the coffin slides over the surface, a secret mechanism is triggered, and huge spears descend rapidly from the ceiling. Two of the guys pay for their greed with their lives, while the rest watch in shock. The trap also triggers the museum's general alarm. Upon hearing the dreaded sound, Van Helsing mutters that it cannot be. He then presses a hidden button, revealing a panel filled with defense instruments. At the same time, the thieves are desperate with the alarm. The only way to escape the crypt is by blowing up one of the walls. Concerned with their escape, no one notices a curious phenomenon. The sad end of their friends had sullied the coffin lid, but now it is almost clean again. Whatever is inside seems to be sucking the blood. At this point, Shade and Trick just want to save themselves, but Marcus insists on taking the coffin. Selena threatens to take them out if they don't help. When Van Helsing arrives at the crypt, the gang is already far away, and there is no sign of the coffin. The next morning is Mardi Gras, a street carnival in the city of New Orleans. A young woman named Mary Heller is waking up from yet another horrifying nightmare. She lives with her friend Lucy, who tries to help her overcome the problem. The two decide to take a stroll and enjoy the party. In London, Simon is arriving at the Carfax Museum. Upon learning about the robbery the previous night, he suggests calling the police, but Van Helsing says no. Some items from his personal collection were obtained in rather untraditional ways. For this reason, he prefers not to involve the authorities and resolve the matter himself. The museum will be under Simon's care while he is away. At this moment, the thieves are flying over the Atlantic. No one has managed to open the coffin yet, and the group is starting to get demotivated. Shade is alone when he accidentally pricks his finger. While he grumbles sitting on the floor, a thin smoke begins to emerge from the cracks of the coffin. He is startled to realize what is happening and sees the smoke passing under the decorative cross. Upon touching it, he realizes that the cross is movable. Finally managing to open the lid, he is disgusted to see that there is an occupant in the coffin. The man must have been very dangerous when alive, judging by the precautions. His arms are shackled and an iron helmet covers his head. Horror begins to turn into curiosity as Shade sees the leeches. He leans in closer to investigate and then tries to remove one of them. The creature goes straight for his eye, firmly sticking to his eyelid. In a panic, the young man pulls with all his might until he frees the worm before smashing it with his foot. Unable to learn his lesson, he leans even closer to the deceased, almost pressing his ear against him. Then he sees a crucifix encrusted with rubies and makes the mistake of taking it out of place. This releases the traveler from his long slumber. The first thing he does is tighten his grip around Shade's neck. Trick hears his colleague screams and goes to check if he is okay. He finds the closed coffin with no one around. There are signs of a struggle, and the back door is banging. Trick goes over there, calling for Shade without getting a response. The metal helmet hits his head as he peers through the entrance. A noise startles him, and he then notices the open chains. Something seems to have freed itself from its shackles. Cautiously, he lifts the lid and starts screaming. Upon seeing Shade lying in the coffin, Trick slips and falls backward on the floor. An upside-down vampire is the last thing he sees in life. Just as Marcus is saying that the noise is just turbulence, Trick is thrown through the door. The person who comes right behind is almost a decomposing being, but then his features completely transform. In a matter of seconds, the person standing before them is now a young, strong man. His firm gaze, with an outstretched hand, is enough to hypnotize Selena. She steps away from her boyfriend, as if he does not exist, and falls into the arms of the tormentor. The vampire wastes no time, sinking his teeth into her neck. Incredulous at the scene, Marcus tries to defeat the rival, but his bullets do not even tickle him. A shot compromises the aircraft. The pilot is also startled to see the monstrous storm ahead of him, unsatisfied with Selena. The vampire turns his attention to Marcus as well. It is then that something strange happens to Mary Heller. Alone in her room, she suddenly finds herself inside the plane, facing the vampire. He seems to recognize her and even says her name. Before he can reach her, Lucy enters the room and breaks the spell. Shaken by the incident, Mary goes to the church her mother used to attend and talks to Father David about her past. She does not remember her father, but suspects he was a dangerous man. She believes her mother kept an unconfessable secret, and whatever it is must have been passed down to her. David says he does not know anything, but his expression says otherwise. A few hours later, Van Helsing arrives in New Orleans. At the airport, he sees news about the plane crash, under suspicious circumstances, and immediately understands what happened. The victims were taken to a small town called Clark. Not far from there, Van Helsing decides to go there, unaware that Simon has followed him. At the accident site, reporter Valerie Sharp is trying to record a segment before night falls. Observing the girl through the lens, the cameraman is startled when she seems to tense her body. Suddenly, a trickle of red begins to emerge from her neck. Only when he pulls the camera away does the vampire appear. Valerie runs to the van terrified. Through the screens, she sees her colleague being attacked by what seems to be an invisible force. Then the vampire opens the door. As scared as Valerie is, she does not resist his outstretched hand. When night falls, Van Helsing arrives at the site where the plane crash victims are. He does not seem very surprised to see that some bags are empty. The only thing that startles him is Simon's arrival. He tries to warn the young man about what he is about to witness, but it does not help much. Opening one of the bags, Van Helsing sees Selena and moves forward to attack her. Shocked, Simon tries to stop him. It is then that the girl resurrects. To his horror, she jumps away with an impossible leap. Shade appears next, and this time, Simon does not interfere with his boss's work. Van Helsing quickly explains that these people are the living dead. Simon listens in astonishment to the instructions on how to proceed. The next to revive is Marcus. He laughs at Simon holding a cross, but soon realizes his mistake. The crucifix is a retractable stake, which does not end very well for Marcus. One by one, all of the gang's dead attempt to attack the duo. They defend themselves with silver bullets and sharp stakes. Simon is about to finish off Selena when the sirens are heard. The police find her pinned to the wall in the car. Van Helsing explains the facts. Dracula was never a fictional character. When he came to London over a century ago, Van Helsing swore to defeat him. But unlike his offspring, he never dies. The only alternative was to capture him and keep him imprisoned in the crypt. For this, Van Helsing devised a trap, tricked Dracula, caged him, and with the help of other men, pierced his heart from 4 directions. Soon after, he locked him in the coffin to prolong his own life until he finds a definitive solution. Van Helsing discovered that if he feeds on Dracula's blood through the leeches, he can have a long life without becoming a vampire. Of course, Simon is stunned by all this. Suspecting that the boss has not revealed everything, he asks how he knew that Dracula would come to the city. Defeated, Van Helsing reveals the last secret: his daughter Mary. The girl continues to suffer from nightmares and visions. While she seeks comfort in the church, Selena is putting on a show of poise. At the police station, the officer and the doctor are so fascinated that they barely notice someone arriving. Right behind them, the interrogation ends with a banquet for the 2 vampires. Simon and Van Helsing are trying to find Mary, but the city is in chaos. Dracula finds Lucy in the shop where the girls work. He asks about Mary, and she says they live together. Arriving home, Lucy invites him in without a second thought. She explains that this house belonged to Mary's mother and that they both had to redecorate everything to get rid of the religious atmosphere. The guest approves the girl's decision. When Lucy asks if he wants coffee, he makes it clear what he prefers to drink. While the two are having fun, Mary has a bad feeling about her friend. She tries to find her at the store, but ends up being found by Simon. He says he is a friend of her father, which does not help much. They haven't spoken in 12 years, and Mary does not trust him. Simon tries to explain the situation when a man approaches him asking for money. He tries to dismiss the beggar, but only upon being attacked does he realize it is Marcus seeking revenge. This time Simon has learned what works and only finishes the fight when the vampire's head is several meters from his body. Meanwhile, Van Helsing is at his ex-wife's house looking for his daughter. Waiting for him is his enemy. Dracula says that Mary belongs to him. She inherited the blood stolen by Van Helsing to stay alive. That is what makes her special. Moments later, the girl arrives home. She receives a call from Lucy. In a strange voice, she says she is with Mary's father and then hangs up. Worried, Mary goes to her friend's room. But who she finds is Van Helsing. He has been definitively defeated. Lucy arrives shortly after. Vampirized Valerie and Selena are with her. The three begin to torment Mary until Dracula himself appears. He chases her, alternating between his human form and that of a wolf. Simon arrives when Mary crosses the street door. He fires a silver bullet at the wolf, but the creature merely dissolves into hundreds of bats. He asks Mary where Van Helsing is, and the girl's silence answers everything. They decide to spend the rest of the night at the church now. Mary knows her origin and is inconsolable with her fate. She has been part of the monster since she was born. Simon says he owes a lot to her father and will protect her at all costs. For her defense, he gives her the cross that turns into a stake. Then the two begin to study the vampire, trying to find a connection between the elements that can stop him. The research is soon interrupted by the subject himself. In person, Dracula is not afraid of the church or the Bible. Simon tells Mary to run and tries to face him alone. Soon the vampire disappears from the library and goes after the girl in the cemetery. The chase is unfair as he can sense her presence. Simon arrives too late and the two vanish. He tries to search for Mary in the city, but is soon captured by the trio of vampire women who do everything to confuse him. Faithful to his principles, he manages to free himself from Valerie, but is knocked out shortly afterward. Dracula is with Mary on a terrace from where they observe the party. With a bite, he transports her to the past, so she can learn his greatest secret. His real name is Judas, and his endless existence is the punishment for the betraying kiss. At the Last Supper, his soul was traded for silver coins. And this is the connection between the metal and Christian symbols. After he saw his error in betraying Jesus, he burned with remorse, and instead of asking for forgiveness, as Peter did, he tried to end it all using a rope on a tree as a curse. He was condemned to never die and to wander as a leech. Mary seems moved by such loneliness. The two kiss, and he takes her to his friends. They are with Simon, and Dracula wants Mary to feed on him. To her friend's surprise, she agrees. Everyone revels in the bite, but Dracula realizes it ends too quickly. Mary explains that Simon is a vampire hunter. Even transformed, he will never leave them in peace. She says she wants his head, probably. Dracula allows her to take the honors. Just before the fatal blow, Lucy realizes that Simon's neck has not been bitten. Mary changes direction at the last second, and it is her ex-friend's head that flies through the air. Simon manages to free himself and fight Selena until he ends her. Mary confronts Dracula. He says that her efforts are futile. He cannot die because nobody wants him on the other side. No matter what she does, he will always be returned to this world. Mary insists on testing the theory nonetheless. She jumps off the terrace with him, leaving him tied by a rope. Her own fall has little effect due to her semi-human nature. In a fit of mercy, Dracula says, he sets her free, and she returns to being a normal girl. The sun rises, and the vampire is consumed by flames. Mary takes her father's surname and takes upon herself the burden of monitoring Dracula's ashes as long as she lives.